Hello, Makersmill CNCers. Welcome to another edition of CNC 101. So this is the CAM, computer aided manufacturing portion of the lesson. So if you haven't yet created your drawing, stop, go back to the other video. You are ahead of yourself. We need to create you should have a 3D body. Remember we talked about bodies on our last class, and it should have some sort of writing on it, unless you really don't want any writing, something to be engraved. Okay, so and you could see in your on your screen here, you should have a body. That's really important. If you don't have that, go back to that last video. All right, so we're in design. Let's go over, we've completed our design. Let's go over to manufacture. Okay, so now we're in manufacture, and you can see our tabs up here are way different. There's all new stuff. And what we're going to do is first we are going to right click on setup and create a new setup. So this is sort of the overview. It's telling, so let me take a step back here. This computer is dumb. It doesn't know what you want to do. It knows you have a model, but it doesn't know, it's not going to magically cut out everything that's part of it. You need to tell it what you want it to do. You need to tell it what you're starting with. Okay, so the setup is the first part of that. For the setup, we're not going to select a machine. We are going to select milling. Okay, we are doing milling with the CNC router. The orientation, okay, this is why I suggested the orientation that I chose. You want the Z to be facing out, and the X and the Y to look like this. The X on the Makersmill CNC is the long axis. So if you had a long piece, you'd want that to be on the X-axis. And so you could see here this box that's created. That's actually the piece of wood you're starting with. And we got to tell it exactly what size that piece of wood is, so it knows what to do, how to interact with it. So you can see here, we've got the orientation. I like the model orientation, but you could change it if you wanted to. We're going to stick with model orientation. The origin. So we're going to say that we are going to select a point, and we are going to select the bottom left corner of our stock. Okay, so this is the stock, and we're going to actually choose that stock size later, but we're going to choose the bottom left of the stock. And the model, so the model that it's saying basically, hey, what do you want to look at? And so if we had multiple models, we would say which one we want, but we only have one, so we're going to select the one that we have. So for the stock tab, now I'm going over here. There's a lot of different options here. We're going to do, you could do a relative size box. We're going to do a fixed size box. So I'm just going to say, hey, I've got a 6.5 inch piece of wood. And actually, you know what? We're going to actually say we have an 8-inch piece of wood by 8 inches. And the height is going to be 0.75. Now, the height's going to be really important. I would recommend really measuring the piece of wood you're going to be using and entering that in here. We're not going to be facing down any of our wood in this class. This is where you could, if you started with an inch and you wanted to take off a quarter off the top, we could do something like that, but we're not going to do that here. So if you, let's say your piece of wood is 0.75, I would, first of all, I would model it in exactly 0.75, and then I would tell it the stock is that same amount. Okay, and you could see my origin, which Gardner will talk to us about, moved to that bottom left of the piece of wood. And it's also nice because I have a lot of room around this piece of wood to clamp to, which is another thing that's going to be important. Post process, this is all gonna stay exactly the way it is defaults. Okay, so we haven't told it anything other than, hey, what size is my piece of wood? And you can see can scroll around, and that I've told it the size of my wood, and I've told it where I want my 0 point in that bottom left corner. That's it. What I haven't told it is how I want to cut out this sign, or what I want to do with these letters. So let's go ahead and do that now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say, go over here to 2D, which is what we're going to be using. And we have a few options with engraving and doing letters. So, and I'm going to talk to you about that, but for now, I'm going to use trace. And we'll talk about that a little more, but I want to keep these videos relatively short, so I'm not just blabbing on. Okay, sorry, I did that a little fast. So let me go back. So 2D, trace. I'm going to click trace, okay? And now this box pops up. This is basically saying, hey, okay, you told us we want to trace. Now you got to tell us what you want to trace, how you want to do it, all the good stuff. So our first thing with any of these CAM procedures is, or processes, is you're going to select a tool. So I'm going to click select here, and it's going to pop up a window. And if you haven't looked in here yet, there's a lot of options, but basically the easiest thing to do is go in your Fusion 360 library, click over here, and then you can sort by type or by category. We want an engrave or chamfer mill. And so when I click on one of these, it'll actually pull up. So you can see I click this and whoops, that's not what I want. I don't want something that looks like that. So I'm going to move around to engraving tools. You can see that's a 45-degree chamfer mill. And we're just going to go with that for simplicity. It's important to select a tool that we actually have at the Makersmill, and hopefully we're going to be getting some more. So for now, let's just select that. So I've selected the tool. Coolant we don't need. Not going to be using coolant. So these speeds here, the defaults are usually good. Well, Gardner is going to talk more about that, but I'm not going to play around with any of these right now. So I'm going to go to the next tab. You can see this trace tool has 5 different tabs. We're going to need to input stuff. So let's go to the next one, which is geometry. And this is basically saying, hey, what do you want to trace? And so I am going to choose, I sometimes get this wrong, but I believe it is sketch profiles. And I want to start with the outside, and I'm going to click my stop. Actually, I'm going to do both inside and outside, all loops. So when you hover over these things, it's going to give you kind of a little suggestion. Hey, what does outer loops mean? What does inner loops mean? So I'm going to do both all loops, and we'll see what that looks like in a second. Click OK. You can see now it's kind of created this traced line around my stop sign, around my stop words. And now we're going to go. So that's all we need there. So remember there, I went to sketch profiles. That can be a tricky one if you're doing something different than this. But let's talk about it. Now let's go to heights. Heights is the big one. So you have a clearance height, a retract height, and a feed height. So I'm going to actually move us around in the three-dimensional world, and I'm going to have it look from here. So you can see here, this is our wood, and this is this orange is actually the clearance height. So as I move it, you can see it's moving the offset here. So basically, this is telling the computer how far off the tool should be from the wood. So we are going to choose 1 inch for retract height, 1 inch for feed height, and the clearance height is going to be 1 inch from retract height. So all these have, there's a lot of options here, but we're going to keep it easy. We're going to go 1 inch from retract height. Our retract height is going to be 1 inch from the stock top. You could see I could choose a lot of different options, but, and then our feed height is going to be 1 inch from, we'll do stock top as well. So that means when this computer is moving around to get to the, when it's doing its carving, it's gonna be up above 1 inch above the wood. And that's so it doesn't accidentally scrape along the wood as it's moving. Gardner should talk us a little bit about that. Okay, so that's heights. Now let's do passes. Okay. So I'm going to reorient ourselves. Passes is going to tell this software exactly what we want, how we want to do this. And it has a lot of options. So what we're going to do is focus on axial offset, because this is going to basically tell how deep you want this to carve. So we're going to start with 0.01, so 10,000ths of an inch. Oops, I clicked enter by accident, so I'm going to go back into that, into the trace. I shouldn't have clicked enter, so I apologize there. Let's get back here. So you can see I entered 0.01, and that's really all we should need to do here. So we're going to leave that. There's a lot of different ways to engrave and to trace, and but this should work, and we can see now. We're going to click OK, and we can see now, if I right click here and click simulate, it brings us into this simulation area, and I can actually zoom around in this mode, and I can click play, and I can watch it start cutting, and it's going pretty slow, so I'm going to speed it up. Let's speed it up. All right, well, I don't want you guys to sit and be watching me watch this thing. Yeah, so I can basically zoom around and watch this as it goes, and I can see it go, 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 and there's a lot of different options here. But basically, what I want to make sure in the simulation is that I'm actually cutting this thing. So let's go back here because I'm not sure I am. I'm going to turn my stock off and turn my toolpath on. Play. So you can actually see here, this is a really good example. It doesn't look like I'm cutting. So I might have made a mistake here. So let's exit the simulation. This was all part of the test. Let's go. So we're going to go. So remember, we did a trace. We're going to go and edit this trace. So what I'm realizing now is in the depth, in the axial offset, that should be a negative. Okay, negative is going to go into the workpiece. So now let's try to simulate that again. So I click on our trace and I simulate. So you can see now that the tip of the tool is indeed going inside of our stock. And it's leaving a carving, which is exactly what we want it to do. Now, let's say I didn't like this. I want it to go deeper. Well, now's the time to do it. So let's try a different height. Let's say I want to go edit, and I actually want to go down 50 thousandths. So now we go to simulate, and it kind of does it automatically, but I like being in this mode. So see how much thicker that line becomes? Because I'm going a lot deeper, and that's a 45-degree bit, so it's a lot deeper, a lot thicker of a line. And so there are also ways, if you wanted to pocket this entire stop sign out, we could do that, but I'm sticking with, we use the trace, and I just drew text on this surface. I didn't actually extrude it, which is another thing you can do, but we're going to stick with this style for simplicity. Okay, so I like that. So am I done? Well, right now, if I stopped, I would have a square piece of wood with the word stop in it. I have not yet told it to cut out my stop sign. So I need to do another process. And this time I'm going to, so you could see here, there are a lot of different things you could do. You can do a pocket. You can do a face. That would be if you wanted to mill the top surface. You could do a 2D contour, which is what we are going to do. So you can see this brings up a box. It's a different box than the trace. It has its own set of inputs. But for first thing first is we're going to put in a tool. Now we don't want to cut the outside of that stop sign with an engraving tool. We are going to go down to Fusion 360 library. We're going to be using a flat end mill. And I've got a 1/4 inch end mill. We're going to select it. You can see here, that's what it looks like. And now we've got that one. No coolant. We're going to leave all these presets alone. Let's go to geometry. So this is one of the trickier parts of this whole thing, is selecting the right geometry. And I wish I had a good explanation. I don't, but we'll try to learn more as time goes on. But I'm going to choose sketch profiles again. And so what I want to do is, I'm moving this around. What I really want is this. I want this. Oh, just kidding. I don't want sketch profiles. What I want is a chain. I think I want a chain. Yes, I want a chain. So, you could see a lot of this is an iterative process. I chose profile. It didn't look right. I couldn't select. I know I want to select this bottom edge because that's where we're going to be cutting. And it didn't give me that option. So I said, oh, all right, let me try something different. So now I'm looking for, I went into chain, and there's two modes, a closed chain or open chain. I'm going to do a closed chain, and I'm going to select the bottom of this stop sign. See, it took all 8 edges. which is how many a stop sign has, depending on what part of the country you are in. Okay, so now I've selected that chain. That should be all I need in this tab. Let's go to heights. So remember so it gives us a similar thing, although now we have a couple different options because we're not tracing, we're contouring. So it knows, hey, we're doing something different. So it gives us some other options. I like looking at it this way. So we are going to kind of try to keep things consistent. We're going to do clearance height is going to be 1 inch from retract height. Retract height is going to be 1 inch from the stock top. Feed height is going to be 1 inch from the, let's do stock type. The top height, so I'm scrolling over this because I can't remember what the top height is. Top height sets the height that describes the top of the cut. Top height should be set above the bottom, obviously. Top height is used together with subsequent offset to establish height. So I think we're good there with the top height. It basically wants to know where the top of this is. I could say, hey, it's at the top of the model, or I could select the contour, but the top of my model is the top of the stock, because remember, we made those the same thickness. So there's quite a lot of options, but you do want to think about it. You do want to, it is worthwhile kind of running through your brain. Hey, does this make sense? Is there going to be an offset? The bottom height is, you can see I'm scrolling over here. That's where the bottom of my cut is going to be. So this might be an opportunity here. So if I say 0, it's going to cut right down all 3/4 of an inch that I told it to. So I might say, hey, you know, I'm a little worried about cutting too deep. Let's do 0.01 inch off from the bottom. And oops, I again clicked enter, which I shouldn't have. So I'm going to go back into where I just was. So this is going to mean I'm not going to cut all the way to the bottom. I'm going to leave 0.010 of an inch of wood around that contour. Let's just give that a shot. We can always come back and play around with it. But let's see what it looks like we can always see what it looks like. Now, next tab is passes. This one is really important, okay? So it's important, you know, this software is very powerful. It's maybe more powerful than what we need, but so there's going to be some things that we're going to ignore, but one of the things we do not ignore is we are going to click multiple depths. Right now it's saying the software is telling, it's going to tell the CNC to cut this in all one go around. We don't want that. I talked with Gardner, and basically we want to do it in multiple depths. And we're going to say, let's do 1/8 of an inch per cut. So that way we're not hogging out too much material with our bit. That's going to put less strain on the machine, and it's going to just be a cleaner cut. So I put in 1/8 of an inch. And that's all I need there. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to geometry. I'm just remembering now. That was when we selected. We also want to click tabs. So let me just kind of jumping all over the place here. So we were in depths. We went to multiple depths. We put 1/8 of an inch for maximum. What's that? Roughing step down. Okay, we don't want it to go any more than 1/8 of an inch. Everything else in this tab is good. We don't need any stock to leave or smoothing, but when I read stock to leave, it reminded me that we actually do want some tabs. So I'm going to click this checkbox tabs, and what that does is it's going to leave some little nibs so that this thing doesn't start jostling around once we've made that final cut. I like a triangular tab, and you see you can play around with this. You could say, hey, I want them every 5 inches. I want them every 4 inches. And so I'm going to move around here. You can see what it's going to do. It's actually going to leave this little triangular tab that we can kind of chisel out when we're done. So I think we're gonna do every 5 inches. I think that looks pretty good. Oh, that's interesting. I can do a manual tab. I don't want that. But that is kind of cool. I did not know do that. Because I don't really like that tab, but anyway. I like it's gonna be fine for now. So we're gonna do 4 tabs. Oh, or I can do number of tabs. Let's see that. I want 4 tabs. Okay, cool. So now those will be there. You could set the height. I like that. It looks like a good amount. So we've done our depths. Click over to linking. I think that's all good. So now I'm going to click OK. All right, what's our next step? Let's simulate this thing. Now you can see bzzz, it automatically makes that noise. Bzzz. And if you don't hear it, just bzzz. There you go. Look at it. It is doing it. We are going to be making our very own stop sign and putting it in front of Josh's office so people stop bothering him so much. So you can see here, that was the first pass around. That was the 1/8 of an inch. Now it's going for the second pass. And we're not going to watch it do its whole thing. You can actually drag this along to see it do its whole thing. But what I want to do is I want to see it at the end. So what happened at the end? You could see it's not all the way through because I left that little bit. It's not all the way through. And we should be able to see the little tabs. There they are. There's a tab. There's a tab. So I'm just going to quickly, I'm going to edit this and just show you if I had changed this height to 0. Okay, that's the bottom height. Now, let's go into simulate. There we go. You see it went all the way through and it just left the tabs. So kind of depending on what we're doing, I don't think we want to necessarily be digging into the spoil board, and Gardner will talk more about that, but this is just to kind of show you what it does. And a lot of it depends on if your piece of wood is really, really consistent. So I'm going to leave, let's do just 5,000. So it'll be just a little thin piece of wood. Okay, good news. We're almost done. We've got our 2 processes. Now all we need to do is export this to a G code. We need to create a G code, sorry. So let's do it. We're going to go up here to milling and we're going to click NC program. Okay, now this box came up on my second monitor. It brings this thing up. This is a bit of a scary window to me, but it's not that bad, I promise. So, sorry, I was wrong. We're actually first going to go to setup. Okay. Nope. No, I was right the first time. We're going to go to NC program. Okay, first things first, we are going to click in post, select post from library. So basically, G-code is a language, but there are different dialects, right? There's Southern, Northern, Seattle lingo. So we want the right one. We want to choose the right one. And luckily, Fusion 360 has Mach 3 dialect right here. So you're going to click on, you're going to try to find the Artsoft Mach 3 mill and select that. And you can bring it to your local hard drive. So I've already done this, but basically you Oh, it's been a second since I've done this, but you select that, you copy it, and you bring it to your into your local computer. See, I've done it actually quite a few times. So that will I'll go over that in the class, but basically you need to make sure you're using that Mach 3 mill. Okay. This is going to be the program file. So a lot of times it's just 1001. I'm going to say stop sign engrave. You're going to locate a spot on your computer. Desktop is the worst place to do it, so that's what I'm going to do. And you should definitely see this .tap. If you don't, you're doing something wrong. The units, keep it in document units, but it should be in inches. If you're not in inches, this could mess you up big time. Keep it in inches. So we're almost there. We're almost there. There's a lot of things here, but basically what we want to do is we don't want to change any of this except for one thing, which is safe retract and homing position. We don't want G28. We don't want G53. We want clearance height. This is after you run the saw, after you run, and you cut out everything. This is going to basically say, hey, go to my clearance height. Wherever I am, stop and go to clearance. These other two are a machine home, which our machine's not quite set up for. So go, key thing, you get your Mach 3 mill, you go to your wherever you want to save it, and you go to clearance height. Now we're going to go to operations. Okay, and look here. We have a trace and a contour. Those are the ones we just set up. So we're going to start with trace. I'm going to click here. And now it's going to take all the information that we already told it, and we're going to click post. And I already have one on my desktop because I'm an idiot. So I am going to overwrite it. So I'm going to click yes. And now it created this file. And so let's just quickly, I'm going to quickly open it up. And look at this thing. Just it's a bunch of G code. And that's what you're going to see that on the file when you're going to see it on the computer when we load it in with Gardener. But in the meantime, you can take a look at this thing. It's telling it every move to do. Move, go to this position, go to that position. And that's the code. That's it. You made that. Okay. And we're not done yet because if you remember, we need to make one more, and that is for the contour. We make one file for each process. So we're going to go into G code again. We're going to name this one 1002. This is going to be the contour. We're still on clearance height. We're going to go to operations, click our contour. You could put both of them in one file, but we don't want to do that. So make sure you click in one process per file, post, boom. And then these are the files. So we've got two files. We'll save them on a thumb drive, bring them over to the computer, and then we'll start cutting from there. That is my CAM tutorial. It took a little while, but hopefully it is helpful. And I'm going to stop recording now.